everyone. This is a little excerpt from Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul by John Philip Newell. Had to play with adapting it just a little to make it make sense in the beginning, but I love this stuff. Dearest friends, today I invite you to call your fellow human beings by their true name, to view them in their deepest identity, to see and think of them not primarily for their failings, but first and foremost in their original nature, made of God. Each one of us is essentially brother of light, sister of light, no matter what. Even those in whom there appears to be only falseness or violence, for at the heart of our being is the light from which we have all come. We can call each other back to live from this truth, to live from this place of deepest identity, not because we are made of sacredness. Not because we have somehow achieved sacredness in our lives, but because we are made of sacredness, of pure grace. When someone acts lowly, has made a mistake, or been untrue, we often say, well, that's just human nature. But in Celtic wisdom, these actions are not viewed as human nature. They are a betrayal of our nature, a denial of what is deepest in us, the sacred essence of the divine. Sadly, many of us have become numb to the sacred within ourselves and within one another. But this is not our true nature. This is when we are being untrue to ourselves, one another, and to our earthly home. Seek the divine light everywhere and in everyone, for at the heart of our being, at the heart of all being, is the light that the darkness has not overcome. The tiniest spark of light offers hope, even where the sacred has been denied or covered over, in lives or in the world. But it has not been undone. It is waiting to rise again, and rise with battle.
I don't know for you if that brought back some memories of hearing that song for the first time, or in perhaps your youth of times. But the symbol of a bridge, when we think about that, connects 2 points, whether it's over troubled waters or whether it's over a canyon, if it's over an area that of mountains, but it connects things. It connects places that allow us to continue our journey. And when you think about a bridge, and believe me, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not giving any engineering advice here, but when you think about a bridge, it's got a connective point on either side, which neither one is less important than the other. They both have to function, they both have to stand strong in order for the middle part of the bridge that you actually travel on stays strong. So in that bridge, in that construction, there's not one part that is less than the other. There's not one part that doesn't need to be functioning together in order for the whole to be in its best shape. And I think a lot of times in terms of community, and you guys know me for a long time, most of you now, that it's been always my dream in some ways for what we create here to be a community where one part of the bridge is not any more important or less important than the other part of the bridge, that we all work together to create something that when somebody comes here or one of our community members needs, there's a path that's supported by all, that there's a safety supported by all, and that it is supported in a way that will not fall. Now, that doesn't mean on a given day, we don't feel like part of that bridge. Sometimes we don't feel so strong. But if we can look at things from a point of view that we always don't have to be the strong one, but that we're supported by all that is around us. There was a story that I heard many, many years ago, and for whatever reason, it popped up again, I think on my Facebook feed, just in the last few days. And it got me thinking about when I first heard the story. But back in the 1950s, which I know for some of you is ancient history, my grandchildren will say, "When were you born?" And I'll say 1955, and they're like, "What?" You know, like why don't you have pictures on your phone of you when you were little? And I'm like, well, we didn't have that then. And they're like, what? So I know that when we talk about 1950s, it is a long time ago. But back in the 1950s, Edmund Hillary was supposedly the first one to reach Mount Everest. But what we didn't learn, or what I didn't learn at that time, was that his friend, the Sherpa, which worked with him, which they planned the route, which they climbed together to get to that point. What I didn't know at that time was that they made a pact. They made a pact together that it didn't matter to them who stepped first at the peak of Mount Everest. What was important was that they did it together. And neither one wanted to take credit for the first step, that they were going to do this as a unit, as a pair, as a community, as two people who become friends. And when I heard that story for the first time, I thought about it. I'm like, isn't that really great? Because most of the time, and I believe in our day and time mostly, people are grabbing for the headlines, right? They're the first ones that want to be filmed. They want to be on, YouTube. They want to be on Facebook. They want the recognition. And here are two men making history, and they did it together. And I thought, what a wonderful thing if we could live our lives in that way, just like the bridge, just like these two men, that one is not more important than the other, that we're all the bridge. All of us add something to that community, add something to each other's lives, add something to how we walk that path through our lives. And I again, when I saw that pop up earlier in this week on my phone, it just reminded me of how so many people in our community do that. They just step up. They're just there. They just give of themselves for other people. And it brought a tear to my eye in that moment of time to think about how lucky we are to have this community, and how lucky we are that we can take this out into the world with that same sense of being part of the bridge. It also got me thinking that even though we are all part of this bridge, part of this community, each one of us has our own stories. Each one of us made a decision to start to understand either spiritualism or the spirit world. Each one of us got here or someplace else because of something and some choice that you made. And all of us have those stories that come together. So I felt before, as we were sitting and we were listening to that song, that maybe it's time to share those stories a bit. And I'm going to start with mine. And what I would like you guys to consider, if you would like at some point, to write your story, to put it together. How did we all end up here together? Whether on Zoom or in person, again, because it's not bordered, it's just part of. And so if we write our stories of how we ended up coming to know each other, we can put it together. It can be another bridge for other people in their thinking, in their understanding of what we do. You know, that when we work with the spirit world, it's not that we are summoning up the devil, as many people out and about think. It's not that we are reading somebody's mind, which again, out and about, a lot of people think. It comes from, for some of you, how you grew up, maybe in a spiritualist family, maybe an understanding that there's more beyond what we see with our physical eyes or hear with our physical ears. For some of us, it came out of grief because we had somebody pass and we were looking for some healing from that. For some of us, we may have gotten roped into this because we knew somebody who came somewhere or went somewhere, and because of that, we came. There's so many different reasons why we are all sitting in this community together. What's your story? Think about it. And if you do want to write it down, we'll start to gather those and create a book of stories. But I did want to share, because I don't often, my story, just a little bit of why I'm here. And all I can say to you, and skipping a lot in between, are certain points that I remember, like the bridge ends, right, that buckle into the mountains or into the roadways that keep everything safe. It's like those tent poles that you remember. And there's a few times of those tent poles that when I think about my journey to here to today, of why, and they always show up. And one was when I was very young. I didn't see people in my room like some people did. And I wish I had, but I never did. I didn't see my great grandparents. I didn't see, a spirit guide. I didn't see any of that. But I had a recognition. And I remember it was when I was about 4 or 5, somewhere around there. I had a recognition that this skin was not me. I had a recognition that I felt like I was in a costume. I didn't have the words to explain that until much later, when I understood soul versus physical body. But at the time, it felt like I was wearing a costume. And as strange as that may sound now, as we are as adults, it was so real to me as a child. Didn't understand it, but that's what I felt. And I remember one time my mom driving us somewhere, I don't know where it was, and we had to stop for a light next to a cemetery that had an active funeral going on. So they were burying somebody. And obviously in those moments, we have emotion, we cry, we hold on to people for support. That was all going on. And I remember looking and I said to my mom, I don't know why they're crying, because they're right there. And again, I didn't have the vocabulary or understanding at the time. I just knew for some reason that thing that goes on when our physical body dies was there, was present, but again, without the words. So, my life going through my teenage years, kind of looking, searching, we went to whatever church town we were living in, kind of thing. So we got a little mix and match of a lot of things. And then as a teenager, the outdoors was my church, the trees and the woods, and those brought something to me that sitting inside a building did not. So you go through that, you have situations and memories of all these kind of things. But the one thing that got me really trying to figure out all of this stuff, and still figuring out all this stuff, was when I was a senior in college and I was doing my student teaching. And there was a weekend I was home, and we kind of lived like in a compound, but not like the way you're thinking. But my house touched in with my aunt's, which touched in with my grandparents' property. So we were all together and having dinner together on a Sunday. Everybody was fine, went home. I think on that Tuesday, I got my phone rang in my apartment. And even though now we carry around our phones, this was attached to the wall. So I remember having to get up and walk towards the phone, which was in my little kitchen area. And as I was walking in my dining room, from the corner of my dining room, I heard my grandmother, as clear as we are speaking now. I heard her say, "I'm okay." And I'm going to the phone thinking, what the heck am I hearing? Why am I hearing my grandmother? Why is she telling me she's okay? No reason why. Pick up the phone. It's my mom. My grandmother had passed away that afternoon, very unexpectedly, actually at her church giving a prayer. Mm-hmm. So in that way, I had to look at all of those things that I had felt throughout my childhood, throughout my teen years, and look at it as there is something here. There's something more than just what we're seeing, just what we're hearing, just what we're feeling. So even though that journey really didn't start for me for another 15 years, because I got married, I had family, there was a lot going on. I was working, a couple of jobs. But that always stuck with me of how did I hear my grandmother? And how did she know it was okay to tell me she was okay? So our journeys bring us to points, to these places of anchorage, these places of tent poles where we remember how some things directed us towards a place, towards a space, towards a feeling, or towards some knowledge and learning. And I remember the first time I went into a spiritualist church and never really had heard about it, never heard about spiritualism. And I sat in the very back row. So all you guys in the back row, I sat in the very back row because I'm thinking if something weird starts to happen, I'm out of here. I'm gone, forget it. So I was in the back row closest to the door, and something happened that day. I felt like I was home. And that's the only way I can explain it. Whatever was being talked about made sense to me. The feeling made sense to me. And thankfully, I got the courage up the next week to come back and started a process that has brought us here to the Inner Spiritual Center. So in our stories, they're all different. They're all different reasons why we are where we are. But when you think back, there's always certain reasons, there's certain feelings, there's certain thoughts that brought you to the state and the place where you are now. So in our stories, as part of a community, if you want to write it down, if you want to share it, we'll start collecting them. Because I do feel it's important that as much as a group we are, we also have our individual tales, our individual moments, our individual footsteps on this path that have contributed to everybody. And not one is more important than the other, but it's important to you. So I would say this is not an assignment, so don't worry. If you want to write it down, if you want to put it on the computer and print it off, if you want to, and we'll start putting those together and seeing what we do with them. I do need to acknowledge in this story somebody who's on our Zoom, which is Reverend Bill Collar, who's showing us Claudia right now, but it is Bill because he's part of this story. He's part of the reason why we're in here as part of a community, because he pushed for it, and he pushed and he pushed. And finally, at some times you have to say, okay. So thank you, Bill, on that, for being part of this community, but also for pushing, because I'm not one to just say, okay, let's open a center, right? Didn't know what was going to come out of that, but sometimes with the understanding that you've had in your individual journey and where you see where it could be potentially, and sometimes without reason or really without understanding the process, we say yes. And the more we say yes in those situations, the more other things on that bridge start to unfold. So in the thought process of your story, think about it. Think about it. Did you see somebody in your room when you were little? Did you not? Did you get a sense of, oh, I want to do this because of why? Let's share our stories as part of a community, and let's see where we go with that. So thank you very much for your attention.